Hello and welcome to the Walt Weekly Podcast. It's Friday Live. I'm Walter Latham, your host, and I'm joined by our co-host, Michelle Sweeney McCombs. We are also joined by our distinguished panel who brings their knowledge and their life experience to bear on the issues facing Black and Brown people. And I also like to wish, again, this is my third time, a very happy birthday to our panelist, Judy Andrews.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Happy birthday.
Hey,
Thank you.
yes, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. That is so kind. Very kind.
Okay, let's get on with the show. All right. The title of today's show was did the media purposely ignore the Summer of Soul? And that's incorrect. Summer of Soul is incorrect. Summer of Soul is a documentary that's out now by Questlove that is on Hulu. That's the title of it. But the actual title was the Harlem Cultural Festival, which occurred back in 1969. But before we go forward, I just want to know, has anyone heard of Woodstock? What about Shelter by the Rolling Stones that was done around 1969? Y'all guys heard of that, right?
Definitely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But I bet that all of you have not heard about the cultural festival that was run in Harlem in 1969.
Not at all.
That ran for 6 days during the same time frame. And this
Mhm.
rivaled Woodstock. But for some reason, the majority of our people have never heard of it. And so what this
Never.
show would like to know, what would like to do is explore why. All right. And try to, do a little deep dive and try to inform people of what happened, and y'all guys can go forth and look at it. I was looking at it's a festival, it was a concert that ran over 6 days, and they had some great people there. They had some great people there. All right. So let's do a deep dive in that, and then I'm going to introduce the panel real quick before we proceed. We have Judy Andrews, published author and poet and retired New York City school teacher. We have Gene Edwards Jr., male district leader of the 79th District in the Bronx. We have Gregory Coleman, TWW technology lead and owner of Illumination Media. We have Sergeant Ernest J. Robinson, USMC and motivational speaker. And of course, we have Christopher Sweeney, chef and owner of Johnny Ruth Catering. I'd like to thank the panel. And we want to move on to, I think I'm going to start with Greg. So, Greg, since this is one of the topics that you put on the docket for us, can you tell us a little bit about this big festival that had hundreds of thousands of people over 6 days?
Sure thing. So the 1969 Harlem Cultural Festival was at Mount Morris Park, which is now Marcus Garvey Park in Harlem. And it lasted for 6 weeks. And over that period in the summer was, just some top of the line performing acts, especially in the African American community. I mean, you had Stevie Wonder, Mahalia Jackson, Nina Simone, The Fifth Dimension, the Staple Singers, Gladys Knight and the Pips, and one of my favorites, Sly and the Family Stone. Um, it was timely in the fact that it was at an integral period in history, really, and in this country. I mean, things had just finished boiling over, or were just starting to boil over with the recent assassinations of Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, a few years before Malcolm X, a couple of years before that, John F. Kennedy. So Medgar Evers. So, it was race riots. It was something that the community, the Harlem community really, just jumped on. They enjoyed it. They were, came out in droves. And miraculously, after that 6-week period, even though there was cameras on the scene, it was covered by the television. The mayor of New York, Robert Lindsay, was there. Miraculously, this coverage disappeared. And that coverage sat in the producer's basement for 50 years before it was discovered a couple of years ago, actually. And then the rest is history. Partnered, the producer, Robert Fivalent, got with Questlove, and it was purchased by Searchlight Pictures and Hulu, and they put it out, over the summer. And I was blown away because I personally didn't remember. And of course, like you said, I remembered Woodstock, love Woodstock, no real, beef with the coverage Woodstock got, but would have loved to have seen this get just as much coverage because it was just as impactful. But I saw this and loved it. I talked, to some family members later, and they were there all summer, and I was just amazed that I never heard of it. So that's kind of like a synopsis of what we're dealing with here with this, to me, iconic project in history.
Yeah, I know. I watched it, and I'm surprised. I've heard of a lot of different things, and for me to first hear of it when you brought it up during a production meeting, it was like, wow, man, I never heard of that. Then when I watched it, I was just taken aback by the fact that I've never seen it. Right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say it was the same day as the moon landing while Woodstock was going on. So there were a lot of things going on at that same time. And then during that summer, there were a lot of riots, and a lot of people thought that maybe this concert could quell that anger that African Americans were feeling about the economic disparity, as well as the riots that were going on after the deaths of so many leaders. So that was like July 20th. You had 3 different events that were going on. People were going to Central Park to watch the moon landing and on these screens, and at the same time, people were headed toward Woodstock for a concert with so many well-known people. But there were also well-known people at Mount Morris Park, and I was I was only 7, but you know, as I had never heard of it as I grew up. I never knew this existed until I watched the film on I believe it was Hulu, and it was unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. I'm even surprised that my parents didn't go see it. I'm shocked that they didn't. They lived in Brooklyn at the time, and they had to have known about it. But I'm surprised. I never heard them talk about it. So it is historic, and the same issues that back then in '69 are the same issues today. The disparity, the economic disparity, with the poverty rate of among African Americans is just about the same as it was today as in 1969, 9.2%. So we have a lot of work to do.
Well, as the only person on this panel who was not born during this festival.
You keep rubbing that in, you keep
I take offense to that. I was only one though.
I'm gonna cut this out before we push it out to the platform. That's what I'm gonna start doing. All right, go ahead. I'm joking.
All right. So
I should have never said anything.
Right. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. Judy started it, but I digress. But when I'm looking at it, and when I was doing a little bit of research, it actually started back in 1967. Interesting about the history of the Tony Lawrence, who actually came from the same island or same country, St. Kitts and Nevis, that my grandfather actually immigrated from. But when in as far as your question, as far as like, did the media leave it out? Did our black leaders leave it out? Like, where was the responsibility to make sure that it was shown, to duplicate it, to have another festival? Um, you know, because whose responsibility is it really? Um, I think we were talking before about the elders who used to tell the stories and pass down the history. So where was the responsibility to those who performed, those who attended, to make sure that it didn't go anywhere? That's just my perspective of it. I mean, I think that the media probably could have done a better job, but I think we could have done a better job of demanding it and making sure that we didn't forget something like this.
Hey, could I
Okay.
chime in there? I learned about this when I was in junior high school, actually. Some years ago, Ernest, I'm not going to go back that far to tell you, but I had a junior high school teacher. I was in the band class, and he actually taught us about this. He was very familiar with it. He was one of the people that attended. And he reminded us that the NYPD didn't want to give any security for it. So the Black Panthers actually were some of the people that did security, just like FOI would do that in recent years for concerts held by Black people. And one of the reasons that he said it wasn't publicized was because they didn't want Black people to unite around it. So it was something that they purposely put, kind of pushed to the side and tried not to, because it was an event that went off with very few incidents, and they didn't want that good publicity to get out there. That's what he said, being a person that attended it. So, but he said it was phenomenal just to see his heroes up there. Something great.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I could see that. I could see why somebody would want to suppress something like that. But in that same vein, like, I can see why he shared that story with his class. Why the professor shared that story with his class, and why I would think that, again, there would be more leaders to share that, to sit there and say, no, we're not a bunch of whatever derogatory name that you can possibly think of to call us, that we can, uh, congregate together and be harmonious and enjoy life, and there can be thousands and hundreds of thousands of us in one place over a 6-week period. I mean, something like that, you would think would never happen in today's society.
Right.
I mean, statistically, when you think about the weekends, you can have 40 people get shot and killed in a weekend, and something like this to take place. So I mean, so we're forgetting that we are better than what we're being portrayed. But again, sometimes, and again, I always, from time to time, thank Walt for having this platform, because it's our responsibility to tell our stories.
Absolutely.
And
That's
And
right.
there were prominent African American leaders there. Jesse Jackson was there. There were a lot of politicians that were there that were part of it. And again, why it wasn't spoken about more, I don't know. And I think part of the reason, again, that it was a volatile time in history, especially for African Americans. There was a lot of riots, a lot of stuff going on. And I think that this was something that could have galvanized people and got people together. And they purposely pushed it down because it attracted over 300,000 people. It almost got close to the numbers that Woodstock got, you know. But Woodstock was a mess. It was a lot of violence, a lot of craziness going on.
Yeah.
And
A lot
yet
of drugs.
Woodstock was was the one that was highlighted more. And again, I think it was just because of the artists that were in this festival were African American. They didn't want to give them any credit. They didn't want to give them any shine. And you know, more so, the artists at Woodstock were the artists of the time that got all the credit and got all the notoriety.
Yeah, that's true. You also had Puerto Ricans, Cubans,
Yes, you did.
and so you had you had the brown and the black and the
Remember, this was billed as a
which was
Harlem cultural event, not necessarily a Black American event.
Absolutely.
It was a Harlem culture. So it was about promoting the culture that existed in Harlem. So, you know, Hispanics, Latinos, they rallied around this festival just like everybody else did, just the residents of Harlem. So it was momentous to me in that effect. I think one of the things that negatively affected it also is, I can remember when I first heard people talk about this, the first thing I thought of before they said the name, you remember a cultural festival that took place? I thought it was Wattstacks that took place in LA, a couple of years later. And I remember how much pub that got. As a matter of fact, I went to see that in the movies when it came out, when it finally hit the theater. But that took place over a weekend. Woodstock took place over a weekend, over a few days. This carried on. This was actually several events. So I don't know if it was easy to say, this big event happened in this weekend, whether it could have been publicized better among the mainstream media. But maybe it's something that, after the first week it was big, but then there was less interest the second week, less interest the third week, less interest after that. But all of that to me is no excuse for something Ernest brought up, is something that we should have promoted ourselves. The Woodstock promoters went out there and promoted the heck out of this. And of course they had a little bit of an upper hand. People were receptive to that. But, it baffles me how something like this can supposedly sit in somebody's basement for 50 years. That's the story. But, and the folklore didn't build up in the community. Like you said, there were prominent Black leaders there. They should have been talking this up. How come we didn't see it? Where's the footage of it? Hey, Sly and the Family Stone was at Woodstock and this in the same summer, So I don't know. It just, it's
and
amazing.
they performed music that was really uplifting and inspiring. There was, there was no cussing. Nope. It was, there were little kids there. There were, kids who were 7 and 8 years old. There was no violence. It was a family event. So it is kind of strange that you didn't hear about this and no one talked about it. And also there were a lot of other things going on, including the Vietnam War. So it's just shocking to me that this particular concert brought so many cultures together, because there were a few white folks there. It was Harlem. It was a group. It was for the Harlem community. 50 years and no one talks about it. I wonder how people became aware of it. Like, how all of a sudden was it this time to bring that out in 2021?
Well,
I think Questlove was the force behind that.
Right.
And you got artists now who are in positions that they weren't in before to make decisions and to put their stories out there. They're getting to tell their stories. And it's unfortunate that it took 50 years to tell this story, but look how long it's taken us to get into a position to make movies, to dictate what goes on television. And it's not regular TV. It's on Hulu or Netflix. So these platforms are catering to this kind of these kind of stories, which is great. They're actually competing for our stories, which is fantastic.
You're absolutely right, Chris. I mean, they're catering to their subscribers, and a significant amount of their subscribers are people of color.
So the official,
So the
the
funding,
official story is,
yeah.
Sorry about that. Well,
No, that's okay. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
the official story is that this producer, Robert Fiveland, and another guy, David Dinerstein, were discussing this, and they became aware that the footage was sitting in this basement from this guy Hal Tunchin that originally took the footage, and so he passed away in 2017. Before he passed away, the two of those guys got rights to the footage, and Fiveland was an entertainment lawyer from LA, but he grew up in Tampa. They don't really say how he became aware of it, but it was in discussions. Actually, but that's the original footage. What we saw as the documentary Summer of Soul, Questlove put that together, and he edited the footage and put that together just as a reintroduction, and that in conjunction with Hulu and I forgot the management company again, Searchlight Pictures did it for Hulu just as a reintroduction to bring this to the nation's attention. But again, like I said, that's the story.
Yeah, and I understand that there's more footage of. It's not just what we saw on Hulu. There's like thousands of hours.
Let's see. I want to see that 50 hours of footage. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, it's 50 hours of thousands and 50 hours of footage.
Yeah,
so I think that could be a series that really could be a series on Hulu. And it's something to see because many of our young people have no idea of how great these people were. These were icons. Of course, they know Stevie Wonder, but they don't know Nina Simone. And I know when I was teaching, I actually brought music into my class of Nina Simone. And they were shocked. They loved her style. They loved, of course, she cusses in one particular song. They loved that part, but they understood why she was cussing. We had a whole lesson around it. And then what was really fascinating about this particular film is that I thought that she was going to start some trouble because at the end of the film, she sings and she's telling people, "Are you?" She wasn't saying, "Are you angry?" But she was saying, "Are you ready? Are you? Do you want to, fight? Do you want to continue the struggle?" And I thought she's going to start some trouble. I really thought that was going to happen, but they loved her and they respected her, and what she did was awaken people to open their eyes about what was going on that would make them feel bad about themselves. She wanted to uplift them and make them feel, you are beautiful, you are gifted, you have so many opportunities in life. You don't have to take what they're giving you. It was a really motivating and inspiring film for young people to see, and for people who felt that they were down on their luck and there was just nothing to live for. My favorite part was when the guy from the Temptations, David Ruffin.
Oh yeah, David Ruffin
came out to sing. I was screaming in my living room like, "Oh my, this is the real one, the real one!" I saw the Temptations on, the play of the Proud Ain't Too Proud, but he had such an astonishing voice, even after the things with drugs and the life that he had. His voice never failed. He had such an uplifting voice. And then there are the staple singers that the kids don't know about. The staple singers, they only hear them in the rap songs, that made music with their music. There were so many great performers, So I think that they need to do a series and bring the rest of that footage, because it really is fascinating to see. I was at Gladys Knight and the Pips when she was like, she wasn't a teenager, but she was maybe in her 20s then.
You know what? I'm sorry.
It was amazing.
I'm sorry to jump in there, Judy, but
yes,
we should have had Hulu sponsor this show, because the skit, you got to go to Hulu. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
So we should have had them sponsor this show next time.
Yes,
next time.
yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Walt,
Yes.
So
I want
yeah.
to I want to ask this question though. Although I'm excited about all of this information coming out and all of these shows and that they're really uncovering and you know trying to give a nod to the people that they ignored for years. So much of it
Hmm.
is still not owned by us. So for me,
Yeah.
it's a double-edged sword, right? We're getting to see these acts, but why is somebody else always behind telling our story? They
Mm-hmm.
own the
Hmm.
rights to it. They own the rights. All of a sudden, your guy dies and somebody else, not from the community, owns this stuff, owns the
Hmm.
rights to this. You got an album by Prince getting ready to drop. I think it drops today, and we're finding out that
Hmm.
his family sold 50% of
Yeah.
his catalog
Hmm.
to this gigantic company that owns everybody's catalog. It's
Hmm.
just so much that for me, Hulu, Netflix, it almost feels like on the heels of BLM, everybody
Hmm.
sees an opportunity to make money off of us. That's
Yeah,
me.
and the same thing with BET, Essence Magazine, Essence Communications, Time Magazine, bought into different African American major organizations, and now they own it, even down to the hair organizations. You know, um, people who like Lisa. Oh, I forgot her name. That does the natural hair products. She sold it to, Revlon. So, or L'Oreal, she sold it too. So, we have so many issues with this of other people owning things that we had first.
I think it's
So we have
something
to
we
learn
gotta.
how to keep it, forget the money and keep it to ourselves.
That's right,
Yeah.
Judy,
Hmm.
Judy and Chris. I think it's something we got to be so aware of. I think
Hmm.
all these, conglomerates are understanding just how profitable it is becoming to co-opt our
Yes.
movements, and they're
Hmm.
successful at it. And Chris, that it is
Hmm.
concerning. I think it's turning just a slight bit in the fact that you have more black companies that are able
Hmm.
to tell our story. But it was, and in the '60s, that wasn't possible,
Hmm.
and it's a shame.
That's right.
It's a
That's
shame it
right.
Listen,
wasn't
they
possible.
they invested for years and years and years in telling a story about Harlem that
Mm-hmm.
was filled with drugs, pimps, and all kinds of
Hmm.
things.
Oh
And
yeah.
yes, that was
Yes.
Harlem, but that wasn't all of Harlem. It
That's right.
wasn't the
No.
entire story. And they purposely told those stories, you know, the Nicky Bond stories. All of those
Mm-hmm.
stories can
Hmm.
get told
Hmm.
over and over and over again.
Hmm.
But this
Hmm.
concert series that was a gem, that was something that was great, and it was uplifting people at a time where they needed something different. They needed
Hmm.
to breathe and relax a little bit
Hmm.
because we would
Hmm.
besieged with the war and the killings of Martin and all the riots and all the drugs that they were surrounded by. And here you had this
Hmm.
moment in time where everything stood still and they just
Hmm.
enjoyed themselves. And that story couldn't get told soon enough. I'm glad it's being told now. Don't
Amen.
get me wrong. I
Yes.
want it to be
Yes.
told, but there's a
Hmm.
lot of stories like this
Yes, there
throughout
are.
the
We haven't
last
even
50
scratched the
years.
surface. We haven't even scratched the
Exactly.
surface on this.
Yes,
It's
that's
drip,
right.
drip,
Exactly.
drip, drip. All of a sudden, you're going to see a flood of information that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah,
what makes
and
me
mhm.
nervous about it, that they're profiting at
Yeah.
this very time when we're a little bit of,
Hmm.
we're in a uproar and George Floyd and BLM. Let's
Hmm.
profit off of them. We can make some money
Yeah.
off of this right now.
Yeah, and it's happening in publishing too. There's a group that I'm in, and this woman who is not of color uh, got together, and she wants as many African American stories as she can find because she wants to make a profit from it. She wants to be able to represent us. She represents us. She's going to get paid, and we're going to get paid too.
Is
So
she a
you have to
person
be
of color?
extremely
Is she a person
careful
of
not
color?
to give your work away. Yes.
No,
Yeah, Judy. Is she a person of color? Yes, no?
no.
No, no. She's a white woman. who wants to build up her resume by getting Black authors and authors of color, Hispanic, um, you know, I'll just say authors of color as well as African Americans.
Well, I mean, you can't. She's an
to represent
entrepreneur,
them.
so she sees an opportunity. I'm not mad at her, but for
No,
people
but she
that
sees an
sell to her,
opportunity.
she's filling
Yes,
a need there.
the need.
But
That's right.
right,
Right.
right, she's filling a
Yeah.
need.
So you have
And
to hold on to your work as well. You can share, but make sure that you own it. So as long as you own it, hey, you could look at it, if you're going to make some money, but it's my work and I want to make sure that I'm making more than than you. But we can't just give our stuff away. We can't.
yeah, I have to go back to what Chris is saying and what Greg was saying and Ernest.
Mhm.
Just to try to cover that under one umbrella is the fact that
Yes,
ownership, the rights to,
that's right.
having the rights to the content. You own the content. You can rent
That's
it out.
right.
You can lease it out. I mean, you can
Mhm.
whatever and take your commission, but you retain the retention of the rights is the most
That's
important thing.
right. That's right. You must own your copyright. Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I think I first heard this in a discussion with Michael Jackson's catalog to his work.
Mhm.
All right.
Mhm.
And it may have been some other instances or events that were catalogs, the ownership. I think it had to do with music, with the publishing rights, that type of thing.
And
Where that came
trademarks.
out.
Mhm.
And trademarks, of
Yes.
course.
Yes.
But we have to retain that. But, you know, people are greedy. Everybody has a price. So I can't put
Yes.
myself in a person's place and say, okay, somebody comes and offers me 50 million for something that I
Mhm.
got sitting in the basement and say,
Right.
oh, well, I'm not going to take this 50 million. Just let it sit down there until I can find somebody
Mhm.
and I can do it in such a way that I retain the rights. That's a hard thing
Right.
because everybody
Yes.
has a price.
Mhm. Mhm.
What's
Yes.
disappointing for me, especially with Prince, is that he fought so hard to win his masters back, to
Mhm.
win to win control over his catalog, and he did it. And people thought he was crazy for many years. He scribbled slave on his name, and he
Mm.
changed his name to that symbol, and
Symbol.
everybody thought he was crazy, right? But he did it
He
and
was
he
a
won. He
genius.
beat he beat the industry. And for his family to sell half of that is really disappointing because he worked so hard and he was such an artist where he wouldn't work with other, like the young rappers. He would tell them, I'm not going to do a record with you unless you own your masters. He was trying to push them in that direction because he knew what he went through. So again, it's disappointing to see that he fought that hard fight and won, and then he passes away and his family sells 50% of his estate.
Yep. Well, you can also apply that to the land that some of our ancestors owned that was passed down to us, and we sold it because you may have 100 different descendants, and all you need is one, to upset that apple cart for that property to be sold. So that it applies more than just that. It applies to assets in general that
Hey
is passed
Walter.
down. Yes.
Hey Walter.
Yeah, Gene.
Yeah, I would like to talk about that era from a political standpoint. Uh, Harlem was excited. Harlem was full of pride because a year prior to that concert series in Marcus Garvey Park, uh, Harlem reinstated Adam Clayton Powell Jr. to Congress. Remember, he got kicked out of Congress, and what the Democratic Party did was they kept his name off of the ballot. So on the ballot where it says write in name,
Right.
tens of thousands of people in Harlem went to the polls and wrote in his name. And that's how Adam Clayton Powell won victory and was reinstated into the United States House of Representatives. So Harlem was on fire with pride. It's like
Mm.
y'all try to, rid us of our crown prince, and we put him back in, and his name wasn't even on the ballot. So there were big things going on in Harlem. There was a lot of pride going on around that time. I just wanted to add that little known truth.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Gene. Thank you. I didn't even know. I was still in North Carolina during that time. I was still in school, but I do definitely remember Adam Clayton Powell. Yeah, he was a hero of mine. So
One,
yeah, let's just try to stay on topic a little bit and then talk more about this Harlem Cultural Festival. I got looking at the documentary on Hulu, and that's where y'all guys can find it now. But if you wait long enough, it's going to be out there free somewhere, hopefully on YouTube or something like that. But just to look at the people in the audience, the way they were dressed, you had the afros, the dashikis, the bell bottoms. There was a lot of pride that was shown out there. And people were, it seemed to me, and this is my impression, when you look at it, you may get a different impression, all right, that they were looking to be galvanized. They were looking, to get away from that day-to-day suppression, that they were going through. And this event represented happiness to them, a way for them to
Yes.
be happy. What do y'all guys think about that?
I agree fully. That's why I think
Yes, I agree.
they purposely didn't, the media didn't have eyes on it the way they should have, because it was going to galvanize people, and they did have a lot
Yes.
of pride. I watched it too, and I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And what did J. Edgar Hoover say? The most dangerous thing in this country would be uh, uh, black people uniting. So they didn't want to see that happen.
I think that
Exactly.
it was.
And I was
I think it
surprised
was.
to find out too. And Ernest, I'll turn right back over to you. I was surprised that a lot of the acts, they wanted security. Of course you want security. All right. So they, they turned to the NYPD and they said, "No, we're not going to be securing anything." So the first day, guess who provided security for the event? Day one, the Black Panthers. Now I was surprised, but then the NYPD, the second day, NYPD probably said to themselves, "Oh no, we can't have this. This is our turf." So then they took over security. But the Black Panthers provided security day one. Yeah. So
Yeah,
Ernest,
yeah. No, what I was gonna say was, in accordance with what you were saying about, everyone wanting to be galvanized, the pride that they had, because of 1969, because of what Gene had, informed us about Adam Clayton Powell being reinstated. You had, in Chicago, you had Fred Hampton, who was assassinated, and all the assassinations that happened in 1968 with Kennedy, Dr. King. You had a bunch of people who were looking for marching orders, who
Mm-hmm.
were looking for a confirmation, saying for what they still believed in. That, as Judy had, alluded to about Nina Simone still saying, "Are you still ready? Are you still ready for the fight? Are you still ready to struggle? Because we're not done yet." And so they
Mm-hmm.
came there with that pride, with the mindset that yes, we're going to take this break, we're going to grieve, we're going to celebrate, but we're going to move forward. The thing that I find to be disappointing is that never continued.
Right.
When we talk about it in comparison to Woodstock, Woodstock went all the way through 94 with all their troubles that they had, even up to 1999, when they celebrated 25 years of Woodstock.
Mm.
And even to, they were going to do a 50th in 2019, but it got canceled because of all of this stuff that's been happening, at Woodstock. But why did we not? So what I would like to see is not just the ownership of music and our rights and stuff like that. I would like for us to be able to get back to a point where we can congregate together with that same type of mindset, mindfulness of that, we're going to have pride about what we're doing. We're going to galvanize together. We're going to be organized in what we do, and have a mission. But as of right now, I'm not seeing the type of leadership within our music industry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing that same type of leadership within our political realm. Um, there's some few here and there, and I think that there's some things that have been organizing us. I'm not saying it's non-existent, but I think that we can do better
so we can definitely move forward a lot stronger.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that, that's the Walk Weekly's mandate. That's part of our mission, is to call out these things and bring them to people's attention. That I think that's why we exist. That's the value that we bring, is just to keep people focused on the things that, are of concern to us, that are threats to us, and also opportunities to us too, because we work both sides of the table. So, that's our
Hey,
platform. That's our mission, folks.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can we walk back a little bit
Oh, yeah.
on the police not stepping up to do the security?
Yes.
So you don't, because there's a bigger picture with that, right? They refused to do the security for the event, right? So that tells me that they wanted chaos to ensue because they didn't want the event to be successful. And
Right.
then the Black Panthers step in to do the security, right? And it goes off the first day with no hitch, right? So you paint the Black Panthers as this militant, violent group. So now the NYPD, you can't have the Black Panthers doing the security and things going well because it goes totally against what you say about them. So now you got to come in and we got to take over now. We'll do the security now because they didn't want the Black Panthers to have that good publicity or to look like they were anything other than thugs and violent militants. That's all I
Yeah,
wanted to
I
say
agree.
on that.
I agree. No, yeah, I would draw the same conclusions, Chris, definitely, because it went without the first day went without a hitch, and they weren't even participating. So, as I indicated earlier, you had the Black Panthers moving into their territory, providing something that they should be doing and doing it well. And there was no violence. If there was, it was so minimal, and it was so small that nobody knew about it. But one thing, I had totally forgotten about the mayor, John Lindsay, that
Yes. Isn't
that
that
he was a
something?
Republican and he
Yes.
was involved with this. I mean, the guy, I was shocked to find out that
Hmm.
he was a Republican, and
And
he
he
was
was
so.
not afraid to be a part of the crowd. He was not afraid to talk about the people in the crowd and what was happening in the world at the time that affected Black people. He was not afraid. He walked through the streets of Harlem as if he lived there. I was surprised by that because I had heard, growing up, I had heard terrible things about him. But in that film, he seemed to be, I wouldn't say a hero, but he seemed to be someone who supported um, the empowerment of African American people, and they actually were able to be very free with him, talking about the issues that affected them. The reporters would interview him along with other African Americans, and one thing was that they didn't think that people needed to be on the moon when there was so much poverty going on and so much economic strife and disparity going on at that time. Why are people on the moon? And of course, today we have billionaires who have gone to the moon, Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos. He's a trillionaire, the richest man in the world, actually. And this is a pandemic, but yet he decided to create this company called Blue Origin to go to the moon. And then around 1970, we had Gil Scott Heron, who wrote, uh, who wrote a poem about white people being on the moon, as a metaphor for the government going to the moon while people on Earth were starving. So we have this dichotomy of horror going on in the African American community where people were looking to be uplifted and led. And then you have the issue of, you know, Mayor Lindsay just coming up and saying, well, I agree with you and we have to do something about it. And I was curious to know, where were our leaders at that time? There were so many that were killed during the 60s, that were assassinated during the 60s. Something happened in the 70s, and I think it was a historic significance that kept African Americans from achieving a lot of the things that we wanted to achieve. One thing we did achieve was affirmative action due to the Civil Rights Acts and the civil rights laws of the late 60s. You know, we were able to quote unquote move on up. But something happened in the media as well as the music industry that for some reason would not let African Americans thrive. And it got worse during the crack epidemic. So each time African Americans were able to do something positive for themselves, they were torn down by some kind of economic strife, and unfortunately today we have a pandemic. So we need to maybe investigate how that happens. Each time we pull ourselves up, there's something that comes to knock us down.
Well, that
And
happened.
it's happened throughout history,
Right.
and
That's what I was
especially
getting
in the
ready to
music
say. Right?
industry.
Well, not specifically the music industry. It happened after during Reconstruction when we had a lot of
Exactly.
right, and Tulsa and
Hmm.
places similar.
Hmm.
That we were doing good, then something happens and they put an interstate in there, or they come and burn it down,
Hmm.
or find a way to undermine it, because
Right.
that is what's going on, and that also applies to the music industry and things of that nature. So
Yes.
yeah,
And
you're
I
right.
think even I
But
think even more specific. I mean, something happened in the late '50s, and it was strategized by the powers
Hmm.
that be. The
Hmm.
strategy was that, look, they're getting too strong, they're getting too powerful,
Yeah.
and they're starting to unite.
That's
So
happening
Hmm.
now. That's happening now.
COINTELPRO,
Hmm.
Cointel,
Hmm.
J. Edgar Hoover, COINTELPRO, CIA, the powers
Hmm.
that be made a concerted effort, number one, to infiltrate any movement that they disagreed with
Hmm.
and bring it down from the inside. So we saw that
Right.
with the Panthers. We saw that with the Nation of Islam. We saw that with the
Hmm.
Southern uh,
Christian
Christian
leadership.
leadership group,
SCLC, yeah,
Martin Luther,
yeah,
the civil rights movement as a whole. And
right.
and
All
don't
the
get
way
me
as far
wrong.
back as Andrew
Yes,
Jackson.
yes.
You
So the
know.
plan. So think after
So
years, by the time 1968, 65, 66, 68 came along, it's getting even. Their plan
Andrew
is working
Johnson.
even
Hmm.
more. It's even
Hmm.
more. They've already destroyed all of these black movements, breaking up movements
Hmm.
and direction, and now we gotta infiltrate these areas with drugs.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
so now again, it's that old adage: we don't have poppy farms anywhere. Why are they
Hmm.
just coming in our neighborhoods? So
And
we're going
now
to
it's gun
destroy those
violence.
neighborhoods from the inside.
Yeah, we
Hmm.
don't
So
make
now,
guns either, right?
so
Right.
that was the
Hmm.
effort. That so by '69, we didn't have anything almost to look through. People were standing there
Hmm.
wondering why. What do we do next?
Hmm.
And and
Hmm.
and and we faced 3 or 4 generations of
Hmm.
the after effect. So that was the
Yeah, you broke
plan.
yeah,
up.
Greg,
That
You
was,
break.
Yeah.
people like to
I
say,
want to.
conspiracy theory. That was actually what took place.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
I
Yeah.
was getting ready
It
to
went as
point
far
that
back
out,
as
Greg.
Andrew Johnson. Hmm.
Yeah,
We
go ahead.
keep
Go ahead,
saying
Julie.
Definitely,
where were
Hmm.
our
absolutely.
black leaders at that time
Hmm.
that attended this event? They were taking them out.
Yeah.
They were silencing them. So that's
Hmm.
why
Yep,
you weren't
yep.
hearing about it from the people that were leading us at the time. They were systematically wiping them out
Because we're gonna
Hmm.
make
during
sure
between
nobody
that.
stands up and wants to be a black leader.
Exactly. They were just
Yeah.
they were dismantling the Panthers. They
Hmm.
Fred Hampton was killed. Martin was killed.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
Assassinated.
so even right, yeah, right. They were assassinated, right? So
Right.
who was going to step up and be a voice at that time?
Hmm.
Even though you're looking for that, but they were just taking them out left and right, systematically wiping them out.
Absolutely.
It
But
was.
the thing
Hmm.
is, guys, is that it's going on right now in front of your very eyes. It's
Yes, it
Yes,
happening
is.
it
right now.
is.
Yes, it is.
Hmm.
All
In
right,
a in a
Yeah.
when you can read, one second, when you can read that they did this survey and 47% of Republicans think that they should overturn this election if they can't
Hmm.
do it legally. They have to take matters into their own hands.
Hmm.
hmm,
All right, when you read stuff like
Yeah.
that, I mean, suppose that was coming from us. I hate to go off track, but I think it's relevant.
Hmm.
All
Oh,
right,
definitely. It's
it's
definitely relevant.
relevant.
no, I think
No,
it's
it's
on
all
track.
relevant.
I think it's on track if the question was, why was this ignored?
That's
Hmm.
it. It all rolls into
Because
one big ball.
exactly, exactly. I think it's
Exactly.
it's dead on.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So, Gene, I haven't heard from you in a while. Gene.
I'm just really listening, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. But you always come back and circle back with these words, these gold nuggets of wisdom.
Oh, thank you.
Let them listen.
Thank you. I'm just, I don't know. I don't know. I was born in 1970. So, I'm not trying to offend nobody, but, now they all probably
That's two shots. Now that's Ernest and G. That's two shots.
The truth and nothing but the truth. Okay.
Hey, Walt, that's two people taking shots at us here, Walt.
Yeah, in 1970. Oh, my goodness grief.
Chris, you was one.
Boy.
You just said you was one.
Yeah, but I was around.
Oh boy.
Oh, man.
Born in '63,
y'all ain't right, man.
this stuff
Y'all ain't
is.
right.
Yeah.
I was around. I was in elementary school, though. But,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, guys, I don't want to jump off topic like that. But as I said, and as Greg indicated, it's all in one big ball. And, music is important to us, right? Not to go back off track again. Because, we have to rest, we have to listen, we have to get some type of motivation. And then we get a lot of it we get from music. And for them to suppress this for so long, it's just...
Well,
amazing.
Walt, I think that the when you're saying about music and politics and why this was covered up for so long, I mean, again, there's nothing when we're talking about this and our people in this country that is off topic. There were so many messages that were inside of music. Again, we go back to the elders. When we're in the slave fields, we used to sing songs that gave entire stories, that gave directions, that gave hope and inspiration that no one else really listened to or paid attention to. And so those are some of the most powerful things that we can do. And yourself being a trumpeter and playing in the band, Chris playing in the band, and many of us all playing instruments of our choice. It's something so powerful about music. And when you have individuals who can use music and messaging and have the largest stage and have hundreds of thousands of individuals to be able to relay that message and then to repeat that message, that is dynamic and powerful.
Yes.
And so absolutely they'll do everything to suppress it. However, why would we be complicit to allow for it to continue to happen?
Right.
And not push for another opportunity to create another festival, to create another opportunity to continue to get that messaging, because you can see over time as music continued to develop that message got less and less and less. And so now you can count on your hands, on probably one hand, of the quote unquote conscious rappers and R&B singers who sing about love and respect and the dynamics of a family, count on your hands the number of leaders who are truthfully, genuinely out there leading people, saying in the right direction and making things happen. Again, we haven't had a bill for African American people since 1968. The Fair Housing Act was the last bill that was written with African Americans at the forefront of that. Now, granted, a lot of people benefited from it, but it was from our efforts that happened. They killed our leaders off. 1969, give you one last show, and everybody, and then darkness from there.
Right.
Okay.
That's why that point you make right there, Ernest, is why we need to make Biden pay.
Yeah.
The point he just made is the reason why we need to make sure the Biden administration gives us something, because we put him in office.
Yeah, well, I think
wait.
And
yeah, I'm about to say. No. Wait. So Chris, you're right, but to an extent, what has to happen is we as a people have to give him something to do. We have to give him
I agree.
those
That's
muscles.
what I agree with you.
I'm with you. No, yeah,
we put them in place. Now we have to have our ask. What do we want? And it's got to be given.
I agree.
Right, but again, we had to do the legwork. See, the thing about it is that the Civil Rights Act, Voter Rights Act, Fair Housing Act, all those things were years and years in the making, right? And many of us, again, and I'm not saying that anybody on this call that has to have that type of knowledge, but many people that are even listening don't have the knowledge of how to draft a bill and to get it to your member of Congress and then to go advocate for it, lobby for it day in and day out, year after year, to being able to make sure that you can get and they continue to vote during the midterms, like Walt alluded to, and during the primaries and during the generals and during the special elections, and continue to champion issues until they actually change.
Yeah.
It typically won't now take that many years as it used to take before, because we've seen a lot of changes happen real quickly for many other different communities. But we have to really mean something and really mean what we say. Say what we mean and mean what we say, and stick to it and stick by it without any bend and outbreaking.
Yeah, the struggle must continue. It's going to continue because we're still so far behind. We're still trying to catch up, but we have to work just as hard. We have to work harder than we've ever worked before, so that we don't go back in time, go back into history.
I agree with that, but I have to go back. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I'm sorry if some people didn't hear this, but there was a comment made or an opinion that one reason that we're so far behind and we can't get a grip, a grasp, and get back up is because we don't have a father, meaning a black leader, one person that we can rally around and that can lead us. Like the commander. I don't think that we need to wait around for someone to come around and lead us.
No,
I think every individual
no one's coming to
should
save
take their
us,
own
right?
lead and do what they have to do within their means, and wherever we can come together. But that central command structure, for lack of a better term, Ernest, you could probably explain that better. That command and control structure that I think when they said we need a father, and that's why we can't move forward. I don't
That's what hurts us, though.
Right? It becomes great, but I don't think we can afford to sit back and wait for that. We all have to have our orders, and wherever we can communicate, whether we do it on platforms like this, whether we do it in our churches, whether we do it wherever we can congregate and come together, so that we can all coalesce around one, identify with one objective or the multiple objectives to get us to where we need to be. Then we have to do it independently and individually.
But I got a question.
That didn't work, having that one
any further
leader.
Comments on that?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead,
Ernest.
So who's supposed to crown this father as the leader? That's my question.
Walt was saying that we don't need one. We don't need to wait on one. Let Chris say what he had to say, because I definitely want to hear what he had to say.
Yeah.
Right. I was saying that having one leader is to our detriment.
Definitely, Chris.
It doesn't work.
Definitely.
It gives them a person to target.
Judy, can you
take us out? Walt, you disturbing the show, man. We moving on here.
I think that the leaders that we do have to come together. And I don't think we don't need to have one person, because they will target him. They target anyone who is doing something unique and special for the African American community. We saw that with Hoover, we saw that with COINTELPRO. We saw that with, God help him, God bless him, Al Sharpton. We saw that with Jesse Jackson. Anyone who's trying to do a good deed for the African American community gets watched excessively. So what? They're going to watch us. We have to just, I guess, be willing to put our lives on the line. And not too many people are willing to do that now, because technology and the types of employment opportunities, the types of money that can be made today is taking precedence. And you have to decide, am I going to take care of my family, or am I going to be on the front lines getting pepper sprayed? Which one am I going to do today? And it's a very difficult and personal decision to make, because you have to really be revolutionary to create change. And not many people are willing today to be revolutionary, but we can have meetings and we can have conferences and talk and do all of that. But if we're not willing to risk our lives, then the revolution, may not continue.
Will
It
Well,
won't
see,
be.
televised.
well, see, thing
The
I don't
revolution
think
will not be
that.
televised. Right? Is
Right.
that
I
what you're
mean, but
saying?
these are
All right.
terms that
All
have been
right.
coined
Well,
after
anyway,
years
guys,
after year.
But I
technology.
feel that we have to come
You're gonna have to
together.
flow. Go ahead.
There's no one person that's going to save us. We have to get together and we have to decide how we are going to save ourselves and each other.
Go ahead,
And
and
No,
we have to take
Ernest.
risks and
yeah,
sacrifices.
Go
yeah.
ahead,
Hold
Ernest.
on. So,
Okay.
so yeah.
Can y'all
So the
guys hear
thing
me now?
is, yeah, we can hear you, but you got to be able to hear us. So hold on one
Oh.
second. So, hold on. So the thing is that we never had
Right.
one leader. We always had multiple leaders. And the other thing that's different about what happened since Booker T and Marcus Garvey and and
Mhm.
into the Mega Evers and everything, they were not trying to be revolutionary.
That's
They
right.
were doing what was right.
That's
What's
right. I
happening
agree.
today, people
Mhm.
are trying to become revolutionary. They're trying to
Mhm.
be messiahs. They're trying to
Mhm.
be a king, an ex, somebody else because me versus just being genuine. When you see something that needs to be picked up, you pick it up. People are doing
Mhm.
it now because they're under the scope and the eyes of everyone, and
Mm.
that's part of the reason why it doesn't actually hold water. The reason why people
Mm.
don't have the endurance that people had before, because you actually needed that. People,
Mhm.
there's a saying in business that you always you remain hungry, never thirsty.
Mhm.
And when you talk about people who are thirsty, they do anything.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah.
anything. And a
Right.
lot of people right now are just doing whatever it takes to get likes, to get
Mhm.
shares, to go
Yeah.
viral. And
Mhm.
that undermines what the civil rights
Mhm.
movement was all about.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just so yeah, we can have multiple leaders. We never had one. But what was happening though is that the leaders that we did have were starting to see eye to eye. We're starting to have an understanding that yeah, we may be coming from different
Mhm.
directions. I mean, or from different places, but we're going the same direction.
Yeah.
And so when X wanted to partner and get together with Dr. King, yeah,
Mhm.
Hoover's like, nope, that's a no go.
Mhm.
Robert Kennedy was always giving them problems. You know what I'm saying? When he was the attorney general and then now he want to run for president. Nope, he got to go.
Mhm.
Black Panther Party did things that were, again, that just needed to be done. We need
Mhm.
schools for our kids. Let them go to school.
Mhm.
They need to be able to eat in the morning. Make sure we have
That's right.
a food
A
program for them. They
breakfast
need books.
program. Mhm.
Yeah, a breakfast program. They need books. Give them books. They need
Mhm.
protection from going just to get from their house to the school. Let's protect them.
Mhm.
They did it because it needed to be done. We have to be able to sit
Mhm.
there and one, yes, identify in our communities what do
Mhm.
we have, what can we do within our communities, within our own capacity, and then let
Mhm.
that take fire and lead by example versus by whatever it is that you have to say.
Right. I agree with you, and I believe that that is happening. It's happening in small measures. For people like
Judy,
Gene,
Judy,
it's like Gene.
it's happening in the South Bronx. I'm listening to everything Ernest
Yes, I agree with you, and I said, that's
and
why I used your name. I said people
I
like
haven't
you
said
who are doing that.
anything. I haven't said anything. I've just been listening. And one of the things that I've done to keep
Mhm.
from getting attacked, instead of making it about me, the district leader, I'm
Mhm.
hiding behind my Democratic Club. You see everything I'm doing on Facebook that I post. It's always
Mhm.
it's the Estella B. Diggs Democratic Club. First of all, the name in and of itself, Stella B. Diggs rings bells because she was the first black woman elected out of the Bronx. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and while she was in the New York State Legislature, she was the author of the Women, Infant, and Children's Program. She is the designer
Mm-hmm.
of the WIC program
The
in
WIC
New York
program.
State.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So if anybody tries to attack me, they're really attacking the ghost because Estella been dead for about 10 years now. And
Mm-hmm.
everything that I do is under the guise of the club. So
Mm-hmm.
I empower my president of the club, the vice president, the secretary treasurer, sergeant at arms. I got everybody involved. I brought in a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
community activists from around the district. And right now it's an amalgamation of many different people. So no one could point at
Right.
anybody in particular. But if somebody's going to take the blame, it'd be me as district leader. But as far as the successes in the South Bronx, it's an amalgamation of many people. And
Right.
I'll
I
put
agree.
that
And I
out
All
think
there.
right.
that is how things are going to get done by many people doing similar things that you are doing in
All
your
right.
community.
We're running up against the clock. We're way over the clock now, and I think one of the common themes here, I think, is
Mm-hmm.
one leader, two leader, three leaders is not going to get it done. We
Mm-hmm.
all have to lead. The mandate is on
Mm-hmm.
us to lead
Mm-hmm.
individually in our communities and every place we're at. So we're going to
Mm-hmm.
wrap this up. I definitely want to thank, all of our panelists. I want to thank Judy, Jean, Chris, Ernest, and we definitely got to thank Walt, and we definitely want to thank Michelle. We miss you. We hope you come on in next week. You can catch the rebroadcast of this on Sunday and look for the YouTube version of it on Monday. So that's Sunday for the
Mm-hmm.
rebroadcast and the YouTube version of this on Monday. Hope y'all
Yes.
all have a great week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be at you next week with another powerful topic.
Thank you.
Peace.
Great job, Greg.